that were meant to take place at Parliament Hill. He has now been slammed for this quote-unquote insensitive act. In a letter to Pierre Poilievre, the Overseas Friends of India Canada, OFIC President Shiv Bhaskar, remember this is the organization that was responsible for the organizing of that event for Diwali in Parliament Hill. In fact, he has written this letter and he's raised this issue of systemic racism that's faced by Canadians of Indian descent, and he's even sought an apology from Poilievre. Let me take this across to my colleague Sidan Mishra, who's joining us on the broadcast. Sidan, any reasons that have been given by Poilievre for cancelling the Diwali celebrations in Canada?
Well, there has not been any specific reason given by Pierre Poilievre when it comes to the cancellation of the Diwali celebration. But the fact is that his party is facing a lot of backlash, given they have decided to cancel this year's Diwali celebration. The only reason is that the Indians there, those who have been contributing to the Canadian economy, and perhaps they are very much a Canadian citizen now, are perhaps very angry with Pierre Poilievre and his party, because they thought that this is being done because of the tension and the kind of narrative that Mr. Trudeau's government has tried to create, given tensions with India. Also, Poilievre has been put in a very tight spot by Trudeau and the likes of Jagmeet Singh. He has, in fact, been asked to get a security clearance from CSIS. His MPs have been alleged by Trudeau and his government of working in connivance with the other governments, etc., has been done in the past. So maybe to avoid any kind of an embarrassment, perhaps this decision has been taken by Mr. Poilievre. But perhaps this would also give a dent to his party when it comes to the Indian voters in Canada. So because that perhaps there is a huge chunk of Indian voters who vote to the Conservatives in Canada. So that it would have an impact, because the Indians, the Indo-Canadian community is very upset with this decision by his party, and it was unexpected. There's a letter which has been written to him and has been perhaps given to media also for the cancellation and why the event has been cancelled and it was not required. Perhaps that's what the Indian community is saying.
Okay, Siddhant, I'd request you to stay on with us because we're staying with news from Canada. Now, amid India-Canada tensions, Nathalie Drouin, who's the National Security Advisor to the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, she has made a shocking confession now. The NSA Drouin has claimed that it was a strategic decision to leak information against India to the Washington Post, and she, along with Deputy Foreign Minister David Morrison, leaked that information. The leak took place even before the Canadian police publicly alleged that their probe into the murder of Khalistan supporter Hardeep Singh Nijjar revealed links between the agents of the Indian government and quote-unquote homicides and violent acts in Canada. She's also said that she did not require Trudeau's authorization for leaking that information.
Deputy Minister Morrison and I spoke to the Washington Post on background late Sunday afternoon, October 13. We provided non-classified information on the action we had taken to cooperate with India and explained how the evidence showed links to the government of India conducting illegal activities against Canadians, including threats to their lives. The government of India has, from the beginning, accused Canada of engaging in a politically motivated investigation and using the Canadian media to further this. This is clearly not the case. However, we were prepared for this accusation to resurface. Therefore, we made a strategic decision to engage a respected international news outlet that had already published on the subject to ensure the record was straight and that our side of the story would be widely heard.
Now remember, this is a huge revelation that has been made, a confession, so to speak, that's been made by the National Security Advisor to the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. This is Nathalie Drouin, who's in fact speaking publicly, and she's talking about how information of leaking those details which in fact connected the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar to quote-unquote agents from the Indian government was being given to Washington Post. And she also goes on to say that she did not need need any sort of go-ahead from the Prime Minister in that regard. And these are the claims that have been made by Natalie. She also says that these were non-classified information, and that's why it was leaked to the Washington Post. And she, along with Deputy Foreign Minister David Morrison, were responsible for leaking this information. She's also spoken about how this was given to the Washington Post before even the Canadian police publicly, in fact, made these allegations of linking the murder of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar with Indian agents. And that information, the Washington Post was privy to much before it went public. These are the confessions of the NSA to Prime Minister Trudeau. What will be the ramifications of this confession really is something that we'd have to keep our eyes on, because remember, this is a plummeting of the Indo-Canadian relationship. It has gone towards a downward spiral ever since the allegations have been made by the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, against India, claiming that the Indian agents supported by the Indian government officials were responsible for the killing of Khalistan supporter Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Huge amount of claims going against all possible norms under the Vienna Convention. There were diplomats who were called back from both the India and Canada, and that had led to further deteriorating of ties. Remember, before this confession has been made by NSA 2 PM Trudeau, Natalie, there was also a statement publicly that was made by Justin Trudeau where he'd said that all of the information that he had made as far as the allegations towards the Indian governments, leveling the charges against the Indian governments, were made on intel. He did not really have any kind of proof, so to speak, to give to India. And that is something that India has been speaking about ever since Canada had made those allegations. And that is a reason for the spiraling tensions between India and Canada. We also know how, when it is politically speaking, Justin Trudeau's position in his own country is not really looking good. There are his own party MPs who want him to step down amid these tensions escalating, especially with India. We do know how there is a huge amount of Indian diaspora in Canada. Everybody is kind of shocked with the responses that have really been exchanged by both the sides, especially the escalation by the Canadian Prime Minister. And that is something that Trudeau's own party is also looking at, and that's why they are suggesting, in fact, he was given an ultimatum that he needs to step down immediately. Let's take a look at what NSA Natalie Drouin really said as far as that confession was made, where she has claimed that the information of Indian agents being involved in the killing of Nijjar was given to Washington Post even before the Canadian police made it public.
Deputy Minister Morrison and I spoke to the Washington Post on background late Sunday afternoon, October 13. We provided non-classified information on the action we had taken to cooperate with India and explain how the evidence showed links to the government of India conducting illegal activities against Canadians, including threats to their lives. The government of India has, from the beginning, accused Canada of engaging in a politically motivated investigation and using the Canadian media to further this. This is clearly not the case. However, we were prepared for this accusation to resurface. Therefore, we made a strategic decision to engage a respected international news outlet that had already published on the subject to ensure the record was straight and that our side of the story would be widely heard.